It started in the most ordinary way. I was standing in line at a coffee shop, replaying a small comment someone made the day before. It wasn't even harsh, yet it clung to me like a shadow. And suddenly I felt it, the familiar tension in my chest, the fear that I'd been seen in the wrong way. In that moment, I realized I wasn't reacting to the comment itself. I was reacting to years of caring too much about how others see me. If you've ever walked away from a conversation and overanalyzed every sentence, or felt anxious because someone didn't text back with the tone you expected, then you already know this feeling. And there's a scientific reason for it. A landmark study from UCLA found that social rejection activates the same brain region responsible for physical pain. That's why even small judgments can hurt more than we think. They literally register in the brain as danger. We learn as kids that approval meant safety, so as adults, our minds still chase that feeling automatically. But one day, I hit a quiet breaking point. Not dramatic, just tired. Tired of shrinking myself. Tired of adjusting my personality like a dial to match what I thought others wanted. I wasn't afraid of judgment anymore. I was afraid that I'd never hear my real voice beneath all the noise. And strangely, that fear felt lighter than the weight of pretending. That's when something inside me began to shift. People think those who stop caring about opinions are fearless. But it didn't come from bravery for me. It came from exhaustion from finally choosing myself over the endless chase for approval. And maybe you feel that too. Maybe you're tired of overthinking, tired of performing, tired of carrying opinions that were never yours to hold. If my story feels familiar, it's because many of us grew up wired the same way, and maybe now we're finally ready to breathe a little differently. Most of us spend way too much time worrying about what people think. You're not strange for feeling that way. You probably know the exact moments I'm talking about. You say something and 5 minutes later, you're replaying it in your head, wondering if it sounded stupid. Or you walk into a room and suddenly feel like everyone is looking at you, even if they're not. It's tiring, and honestly, it chips away at your confidence, little by little. There's actually a scientific reason this happens. Research by Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA found that social rejection activates the same part of the brain as physical pain. So when someone criticizes you or doesn't respond the way you hoped, your brain reacts like you've been hurt. That's why even a small comment, a weird silence, or a sideways look can hit harder than it should. Your brain thinks it's protecting you from danger, even though the danger isn't real. This habit usually starts when you're young. Back then, approval meant safety. If your parents praised you, you felt loved. If teachers liked you, you felt successful. If friends accepted you, you felt like you belonged. So you learn early, be good, be liked, don't mess up. It made sense as a kid, but now you're an adult, still living by rules that no longer fit your life. Your brain doesn't realize you're not that vulnerable child anymore. Eventually, you start feeling the cost of this. Maybe you notice you act differently depending on who you're with. Maybe you hear yourself laughing at jokes you don't even find funny. Maybe you keep quiet when you really want to speak. And somewhere inside, you feel disconnected, like you're drifting away from who you really are. That feeling isn't random. It's the side effect of living for other people's approval. Then one day, something shifts. Maybe you say no to something you don't want to do. Maybe you tell the truth even though your voice shakes. Maybe you stop apologizing for existing. And here's the surprising part. Nothing terrible happens. Some people might be confused. A few might pull back. But real relationships don't fall apart just because you finally showed your honest self. Another big shift comes when you stop expecting yourself to be perfect. You will make mistakes. You will disappoint someone. You will be misunderstood. There's no version of you that avoids all of that. When you finally accept that being imperfect is normal, not dangerous, you stop freaking out over every opinion. You start seeing criticism as just information, not a verdict on your worth. Bit by bit, you learn something important. You don't need everyone to like you. You just need to like yourself. When your opinion of you becomes stronger than their opinion of you, everything changes. You feel lighter. You feel more grounded. You stop overthinking every move you make, because now you're living based on what matters to you, not what keeps you safe in someone else's eyes. That's how people start caring less about opinions. Not because they're fearless, but because they finally understand that their peace is worth more than anyone's approval. You probably remember the first time you stopped trying to make someone happy. Maybe you finally said no. Maybe you didn't fake a smile. Maybe you just didn't explain yourself like you usually do. And in that moment, you felt something weird, lighter, but also nervous. Almost like your body was waiting for something bad to happen. That's the first sign you're slowly shifting from living for approval to living for yourself. There's real science behind why this moment feels so intense. Dr. Kristin Neff from the University of Texas found that when you show yourself even a little self-kindness, your brain reduces stress signals and increases the feeling of safety. In simple terms, every time you choose yourself, your brain learns that the world isn't going to collapse just because someone might not like it. One of the first changes you notice is how much you've been holding back. You start seeing how many times you kept your mouth shut, how many times you said it's fine when it wasn't, how many times you acted okay just to avoid judgment. But when you loosen that fear even a tiny bit, your real voice shows up again. You notice what you like, what you don't like, what drains you, what hurts you. Things you ignored for years suddenly feel loud and clear. Then another truth hits you. People don't think about you nearly as much as you thought. You say what you mean and nobody freaks out. You don't respond right away, and life goes on. You stop pretending, and no one explodes. This is the moment you realize most of your fears were stories you told yourself, not reality. After that, you start building a different kind of confidence. Not the look in the mirror and hype yourself up kind, more like a calm feeling. I'm okay. I don't need to be perfect to be okay. You stop rehearsing conversations in your head. You stop worrying about every reaction. You stop shrinking yourself. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're just showing up as you are. And somehow, that feels easier. And here's the funny part. You start attracting the right people. When you're not begging for approval, you naturally draw in people who like the real you. The ones who only liked the easy version of you start fading away. It might hurt for a bit, but it also feels like cleaning out an old closet. You lose things, but the space feels better. Little by little, you see that letting go isn't about being cold or careless. It's about not abandoning yourself just to feel accepted. It's about choosing honesty over fear. And once you feel that peace, that simple, steady peace, you can't help but think, man, I should have lived like this a long time ago. The moment everything shifted for me wasn't dramatic. It didn't happen during a breakdown or a big argument or some emotional movie scene. It happened on a random afternoon while I was washing dishes. The sun was hitting the sink in that boring way it always did. And suddenly my mind replayed something small someone had said to me earlier that day. A tiny comment, the kind of thing a person with a steady heart would forget in seconds. But I kept going over it, again and again, like it had some special meaning. And in that moment, I realized something uncomfortable. I had spent most of my life doing this, carrying other people's opinions like they were mine to protect. If you've ever replayed a conversation long after it ended, or felt embarrassed about something no one else even noticed, then you know what I mean. That loop isn't just overthinking, it's survival mode. It's the part of us that learned early on that approval equals safety. We don't say that out loud, but our bodies remember it. Our chest tightens, our stomach feels heavy, and suddenly a harmless comment turns into a personal threat. Standing there with my hands in the sink, I had to admit something I'd been dodging for years. I didn't know what I truly wanted. I only knew what I feared people might judge. And if you've lived like that, you know how draining it is. Not the kind of tired a nap can fix. It's the tired that comes from constantly managing yourself, your tone, your smile, your choices, hoping someone out there will approve. You tell yourself you're being polite or thoughtful, but deep down, you know it's fear in disguise. I used to walk into rooms already worried about how I might be seen. Did I sound annoying? Did I seem confident enough? Did I fit in? The truth is, most of us live like that for so long we think it's normal. But there's a science behind it too. Neuroscientist Naomi Eisenberger found that social rejection activates the same part of the brain as physical pain. So when someone judges you, your brain reacts like you've been physically hurt. No wonder we try so hard. It isn't weakness, it's wiring. But here's the part I hadn't noticed until that day. I was performing a version of myself no one had asked for. Trying to be likable, trying to be agreeable, trying to be what I thought people wanted. And the whole time, I never asked myself the simplest question. What do I want out of this life? That question scared me because I didn't know the answer. When you spend years tuned into other people's expectations, you forget the sound of your own voice. That afternoon, something honest rose up in me. Not confidence, not bravery, just honesty. The kind that says quietly, I'm tired. If you've ever felt that kind of tiredness, the emotional kind, you know it isn't a weakness. It's a warning sign. A sign that your mind and heart are asking for space to breathe. And maybe you've had your own version of that moment. Folding laundry, driving home, sitting at your desk, a sudden feeling that you've been living for everyone except yourself. My turning point wasn't loud, but it was real. It was the first time I thought about choosing myself, even in a small way. Not choosing to fight back or prove anything, but choosing to stop performing, choosing to stop shrinking, choosing to stop apologizing for being human. And maybe, if you're being honest with yourself, you're closer to that moment than you think. Real change doesn't start with courage, it starts with honesty. And sometimes it sounds as simple as this: I don't want to live like this anymore. You probably wish you could stop caring overnight. Most people do. You wish you could wake up and suddenly not give a damn about what anyone thinks. But it never works like that. Not for you. Not for anyone who spent years being shaped by judgment, comments, expectations, and silent pressure. Letting go rarely arrives in some dramatic moment. It shows up slowly, in small everyday decisions that feel ordinary on the outside, but terrifying on the inside. And if you've been through this, you know exactly what that fear feels like in your body. The tight chest, the fast heartbeat, the voice in your head asking, what if I upset someone? The first shift comes when you realize you're not as fragile as you think. You might feel fragile because you've adapted to walking on eggshells. You've learned to read people's moods like weather forecasts. But when you start choosing yourself, even in tiny ways, and nothing terrible happens, something changes internally. There's a study by Dr. Juliana Brainis at UC Berkeley showing that self-trust grows through small, repeated acts where you honor your own needs and survive the discomfort. And when you hear that, something clicks. Maybe you don't need dramatic bravery. Maybe you just need small consistency. Those small acts, though, aren't pretty or impressive. Sometimes the bravest thing you do is not apologizing for something that wasn't your fault. Sometimes it's saying no without a long explanation. Sometimes it's letting someone be disappointed in you and not rushing to save the situation. These aren't the moments people celebrate. No one gives you a medal for saying less or for walking away from drama, but these small shifts rebuild your backbone quietly, piece by piece. What usually scares you the most isn't the moment you choose yourself. It's the silence after. You know that silence. The one where your brain instantly panics. Did I sound rude? Should I fix this? Did they think something bad about me? The silence that keeps you replaying the same conversation 10 times in your head. But something interesting happens over time. That silence becomes familiar. Then, a little less threatening, and eventually, if you stick with it, that silence becomes a sign that you're breaking old patterns, not ruining your life. Letting go doesn't turn you into someone cold. Actually, it softens you in the right places. The more you stop chasing approval, the more mental energy you have to understand yourself. You stop overthinking every message you send. You stop feeling guilty for resting. You stop trying to earn your place in every room. And suddenly, you're not at war with yourself anymore. You start feeling compassion for the version of you who tried so hard for so long, the version who thought being easy to like was the only way to be safe. And then something bigger happens. You start respecting yourself, not in a loud way, not in a screw everyone else way, but in a steady, grounded way, the kind you feel when you know you stay true to yourself. That self-respect shows up in how you speak, how you walk, the boundaries you set, and the things you no longer tolerate. You don't become fearless, you become anchored. There's a difference. And maybe that's what letting go really means. Not pretending you don't care, not toughening up, but finally standing with yourself instead of against yourself. And if you're watching this, maybe you're closer to that turning point than you think. Maybe you've already started letting go in quiet ways. Maybe the stronger version of you is already forming, waiting for you to stop shrinking, just to fit someone else's idea of who you should be. When you finally stop caring so much about what people think, nothing dramatic happens. There's no big moment, no emotional explosion. It's quieter than that, almost plain. The changes show up in small daily things. You reply to messages without rewriting them 3 times. You say no without apologizing. You walk into a room and you're not scanning faces to guess whether people approve of you. These moments seem simple, but they feel different because, for once, you're acting like your own opinion matters. The biggest shift starts in your mind. The noise slows down. You stop replaying conversations like you're trying to fix them. You stop analyzing people's tone and wondering if you offended someone. Your brain isn't spinning all day. Suddenly there's space, real mental space. And science explains this. A 2018 University of Michigan study found that when you stop comparing yourself or monitoring others' reactions, your anxiety and cognitive exhaustion drop. In everyday terms, when you stop trying to manage how people see you, your brain finally gets a break. Something else happens too. People respond differently to you, not because you changed your personality, it's because you stopped acting like you needed their approval to breathe. You speak more clearly, you pause without panicking, you don't over-explain, and people notice. Some respect you more. Some stop assuming you'll always adjust for them. A few might get irritated, but those people were benefiting from your fear, not your kindness. Losing them isn't losing anything important. It's just learning who actually values you. Then you feel the exhaustion you've been carrying for years. People-pleasing is draining in ways most of us don't notice. Only after you step back do you realize how heavy it was. When you stop doing it constantly, you feel a different kind of tired, the kind that actually goes away when you rest. You wake up without dread. You go to bed without replaying every moment. And instead of asking, do they like me? You start asking, do I like how I acted? That shift changes the entire direction of your life. Your relationships begin to change too. You don't lose everyone, just the ones who are attached to the watered-down version of you. When you show your real opinions, needs, and boundaries, the people who genuinely care move closer. Talking feels easier. You don't feel drained after spending time with others. You stop performing, you start connecting, and yes, some people fade out, but you don't chase them anymore. You let them leave because you finally understand that closeness without honesty isn't closeness at all. But even when you start caring less, the fear doesn't disappear. You still have days when a comment gets under your skin, days when you wonder if you sounded weird, days when someone's silence makes you uncomfortable. That's normal. You spent years, maybe your whole life, training your brain to seek approval. You don't erase that overnight. The difference now is that the fear doesn't run your decisions. You feel it, acknowledge it, and keep moving. That's real progress. With time, you begin trusting yourself more. You stop depending on other people's moods to decide how you feel. You stop chasing validation like it's something you owe the world. You stop assuming that someone being annoyed must mean you did something wrong. Instead, you choose based on what actually feels right to you. You worry less, you breathe easier, you sleep better, and you feel something you haven't felt in years. Your own voice getting loud. Eventually, you realize something simple but powerful. Caring less about people's opinions doesn't make you cold. It makes you free. Free to think clearly, free to act honestly, free to live in a way that isn't controlled by fear. And once you feel that freedom, even for a moment, you'll wonder why you ever lived any other way. At the end of the day, you don't need to become someone new. You just need to come back to yourself. And if this video helped you feel understood, or made you breathe a little easier, stay with me. We'll keep unpacking these patterns together, one simple step at a time. So if you want more clarity, more calm, and more of your own voice leading your life, stick around, hit subscribe, and let's keep growing side by side.